a big influence on our next guest. One of the highlights of his career was to meet Earl and get to write with him. And they recorded a song that they both co-wrote called All Over Me, released in October of 2001. And it was the second single from his debut album. And what I'd say was off the album The Heart of It All, his 17th #1.
Ladies and gentlemen, I feel a personal responsibility to America and to the world because what I unleashed when he made his first ever radio appearance on Coffee, Country, and Cody all those years ago has become this force that we know and love. Blake Shelton is here. Nobody loved Earl Thomas Conley more than this guy. Blake Shelton.
The guys back there in the band, the guys back here in the band, tell them some stories. Tell them some real stories when you get out there. Tell them about the time, what was it, Earl, when Earl played my birthday party, and I had to pay to get in my own damn birthday party. I did too. The green hall, $20. I do want to tell a couple of stories, if that's okay. I know this thing, it is what it is. These things, they run long because everybody wants to have their moment, but so do I, damn it. I used to tell this story all the time because when I first started touring and stuff, my second single that I released was a song that I wrote with Earl and Mike Powell, who's here playing acoustic in the band, white-haired guy. And he wasn't back then. But anyway, I want to tell you this story. The day finally came, cut to the chase. Mike got me set up to write with Earl Thomas Conley, my all-time hero. I didn't have a record deal. I didn't have crap going on. And the fact that he did that was crazy to me. And it says a lot about Earl that he gave some kid from Oklahoma a chance to write with him in his house. But the day finally came that I was going to write with Earl, and I remember that morning, I'll never forget it. I woke up, a couple hours early, and I was like, man, I better think this good stuff. I'm writing with my hero today. I want to have some good lines and a hook. I drank like a pot of coffee, man. I was getting my brain going. So I finally left my house, and Earl lived out there by Smyrna somewhere. And so by the time I left where I lived in Nashville and got out there, the pot of coffee had set in. And man, I had to pee bad. And so I walk up to the door and I knock on the door, and comes to the door. Somebody came to the door, and this Earl's in there. And so I went in and I said, hey, Earl, man, I met you a couple times before, and Mike's friend, we're going to write today. And he's like, yeah. And I said, do you have a restroom anywhere close, And, yeah, it's down the hall. And so I went down there, and I shut the door, and I turned around, and I was in such a panic that only at that moment that it hit me, I'm in Earl Thomas Conley's house right now. Not in a writer's room, I'm in the man's house. And as I stood there, all I could think of was, wow, Earl Thomas Conley has sat on this tour. And that's really all that story. We did write my second single that day, though, which is called All Over Me, which is probably has a connection to that story. That's gross. I think about Earl every day since April. I think of him every single day. And it's crazy, this business, if you're in it, it goes by so fast, and you forget a lot of the good stuff, and a lot of the little things that happened along the way. And when my first single went #1, I couldn't believe it, man, and it was the biggest day of my life. And Warner Brothers had a #1 party at the building, all the industry people came and were hanging out, and it was Warner Brothers made a big deal out of it, and man, I looked up, and Earl Thomas Conley came walking into the room, and he just kind of stood in the back. He'd been golfing or something, and didn't want anybody to notice him or whatever it is. All I could see was that my hero was there, and I thought that's all I really remembered of that day until, and it's funny that this happened here today. I remembered something else from that day. Luke has a cake in his dressing room back there. His song "Knocking Boots" is #1 this week, and which Earl would hated that song. But, sorry, man. But I saw that cake there, and Luke's, that's like 20-something #1s for Luke. And it made me remember that day that Earl came to my #1 party, and had to go in my dressing room and think about this for a minute, because this really happened. Earl and I walked out on the balcony, because I wanted to have a chance to visit with him and tell him thanks, and we kind of got away from everybody, and he was, patting me on the back, and you did it, you did it. And I said, yeah, Earl, but you had 16 #1 hits in a row. You think anybody will ever do that again? And getting back to how shy Earl was, and not that conversational sometimes, he kind of just, he had those eyebrows that were just, and he got that, and he goes, I don't know. And that's all I remember of that day. And then I got on a pretty good roll about, 5 or 6 years ago, and I don't remember which song it was, but I had a song, believe it or not, that went #1, and I wasn't keeping track in this way, and I got a text from Earl Thomas Conley, and he said, well, you did it. And he wasn't much of a texter, and when I got the text, I thought, I wonder what he's talking about. And then he sent one more text after that, and he said, you just need one more to pass me now. And he remembered that conversation that had happened, 15 years before that, and I just remembered that today because Luke's crappy song went #1. It's something good to come out of that, Luke. So. I'm gonna try this, and by the way, if you hear us singing these songs are hard. Neil will tell you, Luke will tell you, these are the hardest songs to sing, I think, of any artist's catalog that's come through Nashville. I just think they are, but they're worth it to try. So this is my all-time favorite song by any artist. It's called "What I'd Say," and I'm gonna try it. Talking to the mirror, whispering your name, just like you were here. You think I was insane? I hold these conversations in the silence of my mind, rehearsing all the things I'd say. Should I run into you? How's it going? Might be what I say. You broke my heart, but you know it looks like rain today. Oh, baby, God, I missed you since you went away. You're looking well, go to hell, might be what I say. There's times I feel so angry, I put my fist right through the wall. And then there's times I've come so close to giving you a call. I love you and I hate you all at the same time. I pray that you come back to me before I lose my mind. How's it going? Might be what I'd say. You broke my heart, you know, or it looks like rain today. Or maybe, God, I missed you since you've been away. You're looking well, or go to hell, might be what I'd say. I guess you'll have to wait until that day to find